Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Shila Prabhupada, Haribo, 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 Nitta Gora, Haribo, Nitta Gora, Haribo, 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 Nitta Gora, Haribo. Gora Premanandi.
Hari Hari. Hare Krishna, everybody. I welcome you all to our Sunday feast lecture, virtual Sunday feast lecture. Once again, we are very, very fortunate and very, very happy also at the same time to have our grace Prabhupada Priya Devi Dasi Mata Devi with us. I was just going over her bio and I was amazed, very academic. And Mataji has so many exalted service that she is doing for the society. So I just want to go through some of the brief things that she has done so far. Awesome, amazing, services Mataji has. So she is a graduate in human ecology, 1991. And then through academic fellowship, she traveled the entire world more or less. She became full-time devotee in London, Soho. So I assume she came and met devotee maybe in London while she was on the world tour. That's my guess. She was 10 years in Vrindavan. So of course, Brajavasi also for quite a few years. And then almost 9 years in Sri Mayapur Dham. Wow, Mataji. Congratulations. 19 years almost in India. So Braj Bhumi and then, Mayapur Dham almost for 19 years. As I was reading her bio, as I said, she has really very, amazing academic, achievements. So she has authored 3 books. The first one is Rising Above It All. Second one, Higher Consciousness. And then the third one is Happier Life. I'm assuming that she might be right now working on 2 more, for sure. So Mataji returned back to USA in 2018, and she's currently residing in Gainesville, Krishna House. She has a strong preaching program going on there. She's a certified Bhakti Shastri teacher. She has finished her Bhakti Vaibhava, and she is currently pursuing her Bhakti Vedanta with Vrindavan Institute of Higher Education. So many, beautiful achievements, Mataji. Recently, last but not least, she finished GBC College with Lal Gopal Prabhu and the badge that was part of that team. So congratulations, Mataji. You have so many, wonderful achievements. And I'm sure that I'm praising that for 2 reasons. One, thank you for hard work. It takes hard work to have all of that thing. And number 2, it's setting up a good milestone. And it itself is inspiring for devotees who wants to basically come and, take you as a milestone and, pursue their Krishna consciousness. So thank you so much, a good thing you have in your bio. The topic that today we have, this is Rath Yatra time. So I requested Mataji to a little bit, share some pastime of Rath Yatra. And then, at the last, we'll have Q&A. Mataji, if you would like to little bit, tangent and, talk on some of your favorite topics that you would like to talk to devotees, we'll be more than happy to hear. But my suggested topic was that if you would like to talk on Rath Yatra, that would be, appropriate for the time. Also, would like to inform you that this program is being recorded and it's going to be live on the YouTube also. So you'll have devotees watching on YouTube also. Thank you so much, Mataji. Back to you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. It's my pleasure to be here. Om Jnanatirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuram Militandena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Vanchakalpatirivyascha kripa sindhuvya evacha patitanam pavanivyo vaishnavivyo namo namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachadane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatade Shatani. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jai. So thank you all for taking the time to be here. As Prabhu was, Ramacharya Prabhu was saying, the topic will be Rath Yatra on his request. So recently we had a nice Rath Yatra in, what was it, Daytona Beach. And we brought the cart right down onto the beach, right onto the sandy beach. And the devotees pulled the cart through the sand, and you get close to the water, the sand is a little more hard packed. And so we pulled the cart along that area, and it was really nice. Many people were out there, just sunbathing or taking the families to the beach for, the children there for the swimming, and they didn't know what was happening, but they got pulled into it. The kirtan was very ecstatic, and we were just going to people and saying, come and pull the rope, pull the rope. We're just getting everybody, just people that are wet, dripping wet in the bathing suit, come pull the rope. So, and there were groups of young people, college students, and they were joining in the kirtan and dancing, and it was really very wonderful, especially since, all the festivals were stopped for so long because of COVID. So it was the first Rath Yatra that we had since, a year and a half, and all the devotees came out in full force, and it was really very special. So that was a few weeks ago for us here. And we have a couple more Rath Yatras scheduled for the summer, one in August and one in September. So we're looking forward to those. And, yeah, we're very fortunate here in the West, actually, because, if you live in Puri, there's Rath Yatra only once a year. But here in the West, we have them all the time. Now it's a little restricted because we're still coming out of the pandemic. But in previous years here in Florida, sometimes we have 5, 6, 7 Rath Yatras over the course of the summer. So almost every weekend, every second weekend, there's a Rath Yatra somewhere, in a different city. So Rath Yatra is such a wonderful festival because, many people, they're never going to go to the temple. Just many people that are not pious enough, don't have interest or whatever, they don't go to the temple. So Lord Jagannath and Baladev and Subhadra are very kind that they very mercifully leave the temple, they leave the comfort of the temple, and they go out to all of these places, to different cities and to the beach. Of course, Jagannath likes the beach. He's from the beach. Puri is on the beach. And so I think he feels at home there. But he goes out and gives his merciful glance over all of these people, and gives them the opportunity to serve him by pulling the cart, by chanting, by dancing, by taking prasadam. So this is such a nice preaching program, exposing new people to Krishna consciousness who otherwise may never be exposed that way. So hopefully, next year we'll be able to do everything full force again. But for now, for this class, I was thinking I would like to speak about some of the deeper meanings of Rath Yatra, and specifically how it's relevant to us in our lives now, how that significance. Because most of you know the story about, what Rath Yatra is all about. That, Krishna was living in Vrindavan with Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj, the gopis, the cowherd boys, and having all these wonderful pastimes, loving exchanges, and very sweet relationships with the Brajavasis. And then he was called away to go to Mathura, and after that to Dwarka. So that was very difficult for the Brajavasis to bear. In fact, even when Krishna was in Vrindavan, it's described that when Krishna would go out to the pasturing grounds during the daytime for most of the Brajavasis, apart from the cowherd boys, but for everybody else, the day would be like night. It would just be like the time when their lives became enveloped in darkness. Everything was just, and they would curse the sun. They would look at the sun just, to see its position in the sky. And if the sun was high in the sky, they would feel morose, and they would condemn the sun, and and just go almost insane with the pain of separation, thinking that it would be hours before Krishna would come home. So that was on a daily basis. But what to speak of when Krishna went totally out of Vrindavan for some time? Of course, in one sense, Krishna never leaves Vrindavan. That's stated in the scriptures. But he stayed in Vrindavan in an unmanifested way. So they weren't aware of his presence in Vrindavan. So they were feeling this pain of separation. But Krishna, in one form, does leave Vrindavan in his Vasudeva Krishna feature. And he goes to Mathura, and he goes to Dwarka. And so for many years, actually, he was gone. For decades, he was gone. And he was just disappeared from their vision. So then on one occasion, there was an eclipse. There was a total solar eclipse. So eclipse is considered to be very inauspicious. In India, they close the temples, they close all the shops. Some of you may know everything just shuts down, especially in the smaller towns and villages. When I lived in Vrindavan, everything was closed during eclipse. The temple, they wouldn't even offer the artis or boga during the eclipse time. The deities would stay fasting there too, because everything was considered contaminated. So what people would generally do is go to a holy place where the influence of the eclipse would be diminished. So on this particular occasion, everybody went to Kurukshetra, because Kurukshetra was the holy place where so many sacrifices had been performed. So Krishna went with all of his queens from Dwarka, with all of his royal assembly, and all the Dwarka residents. And the residents of Vrindavan also went, and Nanda Maharaj, all the cowherd men and the cowherd women, the gopis, the cowherd boys, everybody went. So it was a very unusual meeting, because all the Vrajavasis, they were dying to see Krishna. And so they were actually seeing Krishna at Kurukshetra, but it just wasn't the same, because they had never really seen. Of course, some of them went to Mathura for the wrestling match, but many of them didn't. And even so, they haven't seen Krishna for so long. But, their relationship with Krishna was in Vrindavan, in the village, where Krishna's just a little cowherd boy going around bare feet and wearing a simple dhoti and, flowers in his hair and playing the flute and wearing a peacock feather and just playing and dancing and, having picnics and just sweet, loving, simple village life. And so in Kurukshetra, they were seeing him, on a chariot and with, shoes and, like armor and, crown and all these, arm bands made out of metal and jewels and, gold and then surrounded by guards and, these noble royal people. And it was just very awkward. They felt like, oh, here's Krishna. We've been dying to see Krishna, but they felt there was a disconnect. They couldn't really, their love was obstructed by the opulence and the formality of the occasion and the people there. So then Srimati Radharani was there, and Lord Chaitanya is in the mood of Srimati Radharani. So when Lord Chaitanya in Puri took part in the Ratha Yatra festival, he expressed this prayer. This prayer is from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's in a few different places. Where I'm looking at it now is Madhya Lila, chapter 1, text 58. he says, that very personality who stole away my heart during my youth is now again my master. These are the same moonlit nights of the month of Chaitra. The same fragrance of malati flowers is there, and the same sweet breezes are blowing through the Kanabba forest. In our intimate relationship, I am also the same lover, yet my mind is not happy here. I am eager to go back to the place on the bank of the Reva under the Vetasi tree. That is my desire. So we can see here that this mood of Lord Chaitanya is expressing the mood of Radharani there in Kurukshetra, that, okay, I'm the same Radharani, you are the same Krishna, it's the same evening, the breezes are blowing, the full moon is shining, but it's not the same. I'm longing for you to come back with me to Vrindavan so that we can relish those pastimes the way that we used to. That's familiar to us. That's familiar to me. And so Ratha Yatra is basically the celebration of the residents of Vrindavan, headed by Srimati Radharani, because she's the greatest devotee and the one whose love for Krishna is the most intense. It's the commemoration of them dragging Krishna back to Vrindavan with the ropes of their pure love for him. So that's what we celebrate. And when we're engaging in Ratha Yatra ourselves and pulling on the ropes, pulling Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra, then it's like, we're pulling them back to Vrindavan, or we're pulling them into our hearts, trying to pull Krishna into our hearts so that our relationship can be more solid, more firmly founded. But I thought it was, so the Ratha Yatra festival it's a festival of reunion, of coming together. And I feel like with the situation of the world today, coming out of the pandemic now gradually, it's very relevant, because for so many months people have been basically isolated from each other. All the social gatherings were basically prohibited. Many of our temples were just closed. And so we've been just trying to survive on Zoom, doing everything on Zoom or through social media, YouTube and things like that. I know that the students here, the universities are closed, so students are having all their classes just, they're all just sitting in their own rooms at home, having their classes, and everybody's just in their own little boxes, their little rooms, and people aren't getting together. So it's kind of like consistent with the theme of Ratha Yatra, that now we're beginning to come together again. Things are coming back to some semblance of normalcy, being normal, back to normal. Everyone keeps saying that, back to normal. But we have to think about, what is that normal? What does it really mean to be back to normal? And if we look at the way the world was before the pandemic, we can see that it was very shaky, unstable. And that's why, just with a virus, the whole thing collapsed, because it was not sustainable anyway. If people are living in more of a Vedic lifestyle where they're, villages and people, growing their own food and milking their own cows, and there's clean water from wells, and just, renewable energy sources, natural energy sources, then it's not so unstable. No matter what happens, life goes on. But when everything is based on kind of like a false economy, Prabhupada would say so-called civilization, then it's just very shaky. So then we need to think about, how do we want the new normal? We're looking for a new normal, not the same old thing. So not just, now I can go back to work, now I can go back to school, now I can go back to, having meetings in person or parties in person or things like that. But what is it that we really want to establish now for our lifestyle? And so we should be looking for something that's more, value oriented. Because one thing that the pandemic has done is it's made us become more aware of the importance of, family and community, and our ability to just come together and be together in temples and in, namahatas and in, kirtans and home programs and all these things. So we should try to really, not take those for granted, but to try to make the most of the opportunity that hopefully is coming, soon, to be able to really make those things a priority now, rather than, our own little independent situations. So that's one way of relating Ratha Yatra, is that coming back to normal, but coming back to a normal that really resonates more deeply with who we are and what our genuine needs as human beings and as spiritual beings are. And as individuals, I was thinking that Ratha Yatra is, one way we can apply it is trying to pull ourselves back to being more authentic in ourselves. Because, sorry, the devotees here are practicing blowing the conch for some reason now. You can probably hear it. Anyways, sometimes, life pushes us into certain directions. Like, it may be in your career or in a relationship or whatever, and you may think, okay, well, this is not really what I want to do, but necessity calls for it. We need to earn money, we need to go to this place. And so we end up in a situation which is really just not where we want to be. Our heart's not in it. And we, after some time of being in that situation, we kind of reflect and we might think, how did I get here? What am I doing now? What happened to my life? This is just not me. This is not where I want to be. So sometimes we come to a little crisis like that. And then we feel the need to pull ourselves back to something which is more really about who we are and where we're at. Something which is more what we feel we were born to do, if you know what I mean, which is our real calling. And that's very good, because sometimes we can end up trapped in a situation which is just not favorable, what to speak of spiritually, but even materially, for our, our psychophysical nature, for our, physical and mental health. And so we need to make a change. So just like the Brajavasis are trying to pull Krishna back to Vrindavan, where he can really be himself, because Krishna is a cowherd boy. That's who he is. He's not a king, For them, that's just artificial. It's just like, how did you end up there, Krishna? And how did we end up so far away? And even Krishna sometimes thinks, when he's in Dwarka, he dreams about the gopis and he's saying the name of Srimati Radharani in his sleep. And he's thinking, when am I going to get back to where I'm really meant to be? So Ratha Yatra can be about that, reflecting on our lives and trying to pull ourselves out of whatever ruts we may be in, and pulling ourselves away from whatever may be, just toxic in our lives, unfavorable, and trying to pull ourselves into a direction which is more favorable for our personal growth, whatever that may be, and trying to, make arrangements for that, make adjustments in our lives and our association and whatever it takes, to really be ourselves for Krishna. And that's what Krishna appreciates. as Krishna wants us to be ourselves for him. He made us all unique and with special talents. So we should try to use those in his service. But ultimately, we can take this also to a higher level, because we're used to thinking of ourselves as, our certain nature. This is what I am, this is what my skills are. But actually, on another level, we're all just spirit souls. We're all just parts and parcels of Krishna. So what does it really mean to truly be oneself? It means to act as a soul. And every soul's nature is to serve Krishna, to render pure devotional service to Krishna. So really what we need to get back to is that. We need to get back to making our service to Krishna a priority in our lives, and that other things are secondary. Or we need to find a way to connect the other things to Krishna in a mood of pure devotional service, in a mood of Krishna, I'm doing this for your pleasure. So in one sense, the whole material world, our whole, our sojourn in this material world, which may be many lifetimes, most likely is going to be many, many lifetimes, is one big Ratha Yatra. It's just a journey of pulling ourselves, or Guru and Krishna and devotees pulling us back to our real position, back to the place where we belong, which is back to Godhead, basically, or back to that whatever situation it is where we can render full-time, unalloyed devotional service to Krishna. So I was just thinking that those are some ways that we can, think of Ratha Yatra for the world, coming back to normal. But what kind of normal? We want it to be a more enlightened normal, a normal which is aligned with the will of Krishna, and which is favorable for the development of our Krishna consciousness and everybody's. Or at least favorable to, a sense of community and caring about each other and relating to each other, connecting to each other. Things that we weren't able to do for so long now. And then as individuals to really be ourselves. Because Krishna wasn't able, outside of Vrindavan, he's not really himself. And so in order to really feel the love of his pure devotees, the Vrajavasis, he needs to be in a certain situation. So to try to put ourselves more and more in situations which are favorable for awakening our love for Krishna, and an association which inspires us to serve Krishna. And then looking at it in the long term, that this lifetime is just a big Ratha Yatra, and pray to the Lord and the devotees to hold on to us, to don't let go of our rope, but keep pulling us, even if it's sometimes against our will, keep pulling us closer to the lotus feet of Krishna. There's the analogy that Srila Prabhupada gives of the spiritual master, that we have in the material world, it's like we've fallen down into a dark well, which is, a dry well with no water in it. There's no water to drink, and the only thing down there is some snakes that are trying to bite us. And so there's a lot of suffering, fear, and danger. But the spiritual master comes and he throws the rope down into the well, and he tells us, hold on, and I'm going to pull you up. So this is another parallel of pulling the rope. So the spiritual master is pulling the souls out of the material world, but of course we need to hold on. So we need to hold on to that rope that Guru and Krishna and sadhus are throwing us, and ask them to pull us up. In the same way that Srimati Radharani and the Vrajavasis are pulling Krishna back to Vrindavan. we should ask them to also pull us back to Goloka Vrindavan. I wonder if I should tell them that I'm giving a class. Let me hold on a second. I'm going to tell these devotees. Okay, they're all laughing now. Sorry about that. Yeah, so those are the thoughts that I wanted to share with you about Rath Yatra. It's such a wonderful festival, and that's the way Lord Chaitanya, when Lord Chaitanya was in, performing Rath Yatra, he was experiencing it like that. That pulling Krishna back to Vrindavan. And when they got to Gundicha temple, then Lord Chaitanya went to the garden to rest. And Maharaj Prataparuja was there. And they had dressed him up as a Brahmin, although he was the king of Orissa at the time. They dressed him up as a Brahmin. And he started massaging Lord Chaitanya's feet. And this was a very special thing because Lord Chaitanya, he was a devotee. He was a pure devotee of Lord Chaitanya. And he was always trying to get Lord Chaitanya's association. But Lord Chaitanya was always like, sorry, I'm a sannyasi and you're a king. And there's just no way that I can meet you. That would spoil my religious principles. It would make a farce of my sannyas ashram and I would become a mockery. So he refused to meet him. And the devotees were scheming and always trying to find out ways that they could get Maharaj Prataparuja to meet Lord Chaitanya. So this was their final scheme: was dress up as a Brahmin, go there when he's when the Lord is in such an ecstatic state that he won't know who you are, and then just recite some verses. So the verses that he recited were the Gopi Gita, where the gopis are feeling intense separation from Krishna, which is what the Rath Yatra is all about. So when he recited these verses, then the last one that he recited was a very famous one. Tapakatamritam tapta jivanam kavibiriditam kalmasapaham Shravanamangalam Srimaratatam Bhuvi Grinantiye Buridajana, which means the gopis are saying, Krishna, the nectar of your words and the descriptions of your pastimes are the life and soul of those of us who are suffering here in the material world. And it ends by saying that those who spread the messages of your activities to others all over the world are the most munificent personalities. And when he said that last line, that Bhuvi Grinantiye Bhuri Dajana, then Lord Chaitanya just sat up. Before he was lying down, he was resting. And he sat up and he said, you are the most munificent, you are the most munificent. And he embraced Maharaj Prataparuja. And Maharaj Prataparuja, that was like the moment of his entire life, that he had been waiting for. He got the embrace of the Lord when he was so, desperate for that before for such a long time, wondering if he was ever going to even get the Lord to speak to him. And now the Lord just sat up and embraced him. And it shows how these two activities are linked, which is, this mood of the gopis, which is so exalted, which is just the love of the gopis is inconceivable to us. And the spreading of Krishna consciousness to others. So this verse is a very wonderful verse. And it's so closely linked to Lord Chaitanya's heart, because Lord Chaitanya, he's in the mood of Radharani and he's feeling this Vipralambha Bhava, the mood of separation all the time. And how is that manifesting? Is that he's giving Krishna consciousness to other people, that this is actually the mood of the gopis. This is the mood of Srimati Radharani. She's the embodiment of the Krishna's compassion. And so she wants to bring all the souls to Krishna because she knows that's what will make Krishna happy. And her only interest is Krishna's pleasure. So Krishna actually becomes sorry to see how the souls are suffering in the material world. And he wants to, he's wishing that they would all come back to engage in his pastimes and be joyful in the spiritual world with him forever. And so Srimati Radharani sees that he's, in a little anxiety about that. And Lord Chaitanya is very much in anxiety for the suffering of the conditioned souls. So he's trying to bring them back. And so that's the meaning of that verse. And so when Maharaj Prataruddha chanted that verse, Lord Chaitanya he became so ecstatic that he lost his sense of, I'm a sannyasi or whatever. He wasn't concerned about rules and regulations anymore. He was just so overwhelmed. So that's the way to please Krishna, is to try to share this knowledge of Krishna consciousness with others, to speak about Krishna, to give people holy name and prasadam, and speak about Krishna's pastimes. And that's what we see throughout the Bhagavatam. And right now in my Bhakti Vedanta class, we're studying the 10th canto. So we've been going systematically through the Bhagavatam, and now I'm in the third module. So this Bhakti Vedanta course is cantos 7 to 12. It's the last 6 cantos. So we've gone through, and now we just actually finished this Gopi Gita. That's why it was fresh in my mind. And I always find it really amazing how, the gopis are experiencing this separation, but then they're talking about how spreading Krishna consciousness is such an important thing. And it's only, when we spread Krishna consciousness, we feel connected to Krishna. So that's why it was so important to the gopis, because the gopis are feeling this intense separation. But the only thing that soothed them, that gave them any relief from the pain of separation, was in sharing, speaking about Krishna to others, to each other and to anybody. And that's what Lord Chaitanya did too, was that he was, when he was living in Puri, he was feeling such intense separation from Krishna that he was sometimes beating his head on the wall, and until it would bleed. He was just going mad. He was just completely mad in separation from Krishna. But then Lord Chaitanya's life was also so much absorbed in preaching, in spreading Krishna consciousness, and his desire was that the holy names be spread to every town and village all over the world. And whoever approached him, he basically trained to preach. Like he told the 6 Goswamis to, write books on the science of Krishna consciousness and distribute them widely. And look at the conch shells again. And excavate the holy places of pilgrimage so that people can go there and they can have, get the benefit of the dham and the temple and establish deities and all these things. So the Goswamis did that. And then our Srila Prabhupada, following the footsteps of the Goswamis, he also did that. He did the same thing. He established temples and installed deities, Radha and Krishna deities, Gaunitai deities, and propagated the holy name and translated the books and distributed the books. So this is actually the movement of Lord Chaitanya, and it's all in the mood of Srimati Radharani's desire to please Krishna. And that by doing this, we can be happy in the material world, even though we feel so far away from Krishna. Because by fulfilling this innermost heart's desire of Krishna, because Lord Chaitanya is Krishna, then Krishna is pleased, and we can feel his presence. So that's why I mean, since I became a devotee, I was always engaged in some kind of, preaching. I did book distribution for many years in London. And then when I went to Mayapur, I was teaching the Bhakti Shastri course to the youth there in the school, Sri Mayapur International School. And then even when we were in Vrindavan, I was teaching also in Vrindavan Gurukul for some time. And every summer we would go back to Europe and do book distribution for a few months during the hot season when it was school vacation. So somehow by Krishna's grace, I've always been, and now I'm at Krishna House where it's just like, 24/7, sharing Krishna consciousness with young people, college students, and the new devotees who are coming here. I teach a class every evening for them. So it's just such a nice life, it's so wonderful, actually. It's just every day is like very ecstatic. When you're just trying to give Krishna consciousness to others, you feel like very blessed and very fortunate, and that you're totally taken care of by Krishna. You don't have to worry about anything, because Krishna, he wants this to be done. This is his mission. It's just kind of like the US Army. If you join the Army, they'll just totally set you up for life. They'll pay for your education. They'll, pay for all your medical expenses. They'll take care of your family. They'll give you a place to live. They just and for the rest of your life, even if you only serve for a short time, it's like, you don't need to worry about anything. So this is Krishna's mission, and he's, much more powerful, and he's Bhagavan. He possesses all opulences, all wealth, all everything. And so if we just dedicate ourselves to his mission, to spreading Krishna consciousness, and that's his pastimes. Krishna's pastimes now in this material world are Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, which is spreading the holy name to every town and village. So if we take up this mission and dedicate ourselves to this mission, then we don't have to worry about anything. It's all going to be taken care of by the will of Krishna, and Krishna will do that very happily. He likes doing that. He likes taking care of his devotees. So, yeah, I guess that's what I wanted to leave you with today. We can have more discussion and questions. If anybody would like to raise any points for discussion or ask a question, then I'm happy to try to respond to it.
Thank you, Mataji. I really appreciate making Rath Yatra so critical. And then also the final few points that you talked about preaching. So I'm sure there'll be so many questions, everywhere. Each temple is trying to spread their preaching. And one of the things that we are trying to do, or we have done in past, how to reach to the local, residents. And, there are some limitations. So if you can a little bit share how your Krishna house is helping in that areas, there are some tips and guidance, because we have some preacher here. I'm sure they will ask you more, but if you can a little bit share, that will help us.
Okay, sure. So here at Krishna House, we have, in one sense, it's a little bit of a unique program, because we've been serving prasadam at the University of Florida, which is a huge university. It's over 40,000 students there. And we go on campus every day and serve lunch, prasadam lunch. And I mean, now it's a little reduced because of the pandemic, but before COVID, we were doing an average of 1,000 plates every day of prasadam, and the students, they give a recommended donation for that. So the program was maintaining itself. And then in addition to distributing prasadam, we also would do kirtan. So the prasadam goes on for 3 hours from 11 to 1:30. And during that time, the kirtan is going on. We have a book table, and devotees approaching people and trying to interest them in books. So yeah, in that way, a lot of people, they are able to come in contact with devotees and with different, with Krishna in different forms, through Krishna's holy name, transcendental knowledge of Krishna, Krishna prasadam. So it's really nice. And we've had many devotees join through that program. And at the same time, we have, so that's kind of like where we go out and meet people. And then we invite them to come to our center. So Krishna House is a preaching center, and we have programs normally, and we're getting back to normal soon, probably at the end of August. We have programs almost every evening here at the temple, Krishna. We have a little Gornitai deities. So, and yeah, so we have like meditation Monday where we just get people to chant we do kirtan, but in a very meditative, it's very much like a meditation, they just say the mantra very slowly, and they light candles, and for Westerners, so it doesn't seem like a religion, or it just seems like they're coming to do meditation, but it's mantra meditation, and they're meditating on the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. So that's actually a very successful program. They really like that. And then on Tuesdays, we have a program called Taco Tuesday. So Americans really like to eat tacos. It's a Mexican thing, but Americans really like it. Probably most of you know what tacos are. But yeah, so that's we start the program with a short kirtan, and then we have a discussion. So rather than give a class like a long, like I just gave like a lecture. So in our preaching programs, we don't really do the lecture thing so much, but it's more like we'll just bring up a topic for discussion, something that's relevant. And then the speaker will maybe speak for a very short, just introduce the topic, and then throw out some questions for discussion, because young people and Americans like to talk. And they all have their ideas, and they want to be heard, and it's a way also that we can get to know them, but for them to feel included, not just that they came in and heard something, but that they interacted. So it's a nice way to build relationships. Indian people are very happy to just kind of like sit and hear, because the culture is like that. But Americans, you have to let them talk. Otherwise, they don't feel included. So they're used to that. So we have like a discussion, and then after that we have a little closing kirtan, and then tacos. Everybody gets to eat tacos, and then while they're eating, then we try to like have more like one-on-one personal communication with them. Try to talk to them more personally. What do you do? What are your hobbies? And, where are you from? And all this stuff. So just to get to know them, try to establish friendships with them. And then invite them to come back. Because if they feel like they have a friend at the temple, then they'll come back, then you personally invite them the next time. Like, hey, we had a really nice talk at the program last time. We're doing it again, or we're doing something this Saturday, and we'd really like you to come. I really like talking to you, and I'd be really happy to see you again. So just reach out to them in a personal way. And then they come back and make sure that you're there to receive them again. And then gradually they get to know more devotees, and they start feeling like, it's kind of like a little bit of a second home. They feel comfortable. They feel familiar with the environment. So that's really important, that whoever comes to the temple, you should really try to connect with them, make a personal connection. Sort of, even if you have to get out of your comfort zone a little bit, but, approach them and just talk to them, ask them, their name, where they're from, what do they do, and, if they have any questions, or just what's going on in their lives, what are the things that are important to them, what are things that they like to do, and then help them to see a way which the things that they value and the things that they actually are looking for in life can be found in the association of devotees. Because nobody's really satisfied with material life. Everybody's looking for something more. And so we just have to convince them that that's something more that they're looking for is right here. It's right here in the temple. It's devotional service. It's a relationship with Krishna. So, yeah. And of course, people aren't going to be able to relate to Krishna immediately. And so they need to be able to relate to us. So we need to be able to relate to them so that they can relate to us. So it's important to know how to talk to people, in a down-to-earth way, in their language, and to not just download everything that we know about, from Bhagavad Gita, but to just try to connect with them first as a person, and then gradually introduce things, little by little, uh, depending on how much they can actually take, on board. So yeah, our programs are usually in that kind of mood. Try to make a personal connection. That really works, especially if you want to get into Western preaching, which we really need to in America, because most of our temples have, nice, wonderful Indian congregations, but we need to try to diversify and get more, ideally, our temple communities should reflect the local, population demographics. So if you have, let's say, if your demographics are something like, 60% white, like 30% black, or let's say 50% white, 30% black, that's 80, 10% Indian, 10% Hispanic. So then you should have, like 5 or 6 white people, 3 or 4 black people, a few Indian people, a couple of Hispanics, and that way it's good, because then anybody who comes to the temple is going to feel at home, because it's just like everywhere else they go. They go to the Walmart and that's what they see. They see that kind of mix of people. They go to school, that's what they see. They go to, wherever, football game, that's what they see. So then when they go to the temple, that's what they see. They feel like, oh, this is great. This is, this is just as much my place as it is anybody else. But if they, that they go and they see that everybody there is from one particular, ethnicity, then they might feel like, oh, this is, for them, it's not for me, kind of thing. You know what I mean? So that's unfortunate. So we need to really try to diversify our communities. And if you have a congregation which is mainly Indian, then it's not impossible. You just need to try to develop that mood, that Westerners can connect with, because being an Indian congregation also has a lot of positive side. It has some pluses for Western preaching, because Westerners will view it as more authentic.
Yes.
Because if you're Indian and you're practicing Krishna consciousness, it looks very bona fide. It's like the real deal. It just makes sense. Yeah, Indian people are Hindus, and this is like Krishna, and it's like, it makes sense. It doesn't look like a cult. In the beginning, when Krishna consciousness, in the early days, when the temples were all full of Westerners, and it really looked weird, because people weren't used to Westerners doing things like that. But for Indians to wear Indian clothes and eat Indian food and worship Indian gods, as that's like very normal. So then it's just a question of introducing it in a way that Westerners can accept, that's palatable to them, and then you can diversify the community. It's really important to try to. The thing is, Westerners are a little rough around the edges. That's about it. See, like Indian people are more cultured, because you'll have good families. Your parents, they didn't get divorced and remarried, and they don't take drugs, and they're not criminals. They have, it's like, but Westerners, because the culture is very degraded, then the young people that come to us now, it's like they've been through so much, and they're really imbalanced in many ways, and they're very lost and confused, and which is, in one sense, is good, because we can help them. They really need Krishna consciousness. They recognize that they need something like this, but at the same time, because of the cultural difference, because they've had, such rough childhoods. A lot of them have been, uh, you know, one of the parents has left. Maybe they get a step parent who's already got kids, and it's just the families are all just so mixed up. Often there's abuse, or parents are an alcoholic or something. It's just very common. So we need to be really tolerant with these young people, because they've just suffered so much, and sometimes that can manifest in different ways when they take to Krishna consciousness, in ways that you might not expect. And so, yeah, one of the things that we really have, as those of us who are older devotees and who are teachers and who are trying to train new devotees, we just have to be really, really tolerant and not try to get on their case about little things, but just try to encourage them to chant Hare Krishna and take prasadam, and just be nice to them. And don't try to correct them, like, oh, why are you doing this? You shouldn't do this. You should do this. You shouldn't do this. You should. Otherwise, they go nuts. You just have to try to be really loving and positive and encouraging, and just get them to chant Hare Krishna and take prasadam in the beginning. And everything else will follow from that, and try to attend the class. Everything else will follow from that, and just wait for them to ask questions, try to answer their questions in a sensitive way, in a compassionate way, and they will become devotees.
Mataji, so many excellent points you made. I made note of that. Many things, came as a new, ideas to me. So what I'm thinking is that going ahead in future, it might be good if you can just give one session, and I'll talk to temple management, see if you can have one specific session on Western preaching. Since you have the expertise and you have been doing it, you have so many, real life, example that you can share. And that would be definitely, good for us to watch out when we are going out. I mean, we are trying our best. We have some college preaching, we have, Harinam that we do. But still, as you said, that the physical look also is a limitation at some point. So some of those type of, tips that you have based upon what you have done over many years might help. So I'll let other devotees ask if they have any questions. Thank you so much.
All right.
So dear devotees, please go ahead. You can unmute yourself. You can turn your camera on and ask the questions if you have anything. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, please my humble obeisances.
Hare Krishna.
This is Rupa Vilas Das. I'm into a college campus, and the program there in Gainesville is my heart. Kalakanta Prabhu presented how can we bring the ashram back to the temple, I think earlier this summer. And I have been thinking about that program and meeting with other, college outreach programs, and it's very interesting the way Kalakanta Prabhu and all of you devotees doing the teamwork there. And yeah, it's very encouraging. It's a very good model. And so I have a few questions. I was trying to reach to Kalakanta Prabhu, but I haven't been able to. How is the relationship with the campus established there? Is that the Prasadam program, the Kirtan program, it goes on inside the campus, or it is just on the edge of the campus? Is there free speech area? How is the interaction of the campus authority and with the Krishna house? That's one question.
Okay. Yeah, so the prasadam distribution is on the campus. It's in the free speech area. It's called the Plaza of the Americas. It's a nice like square, very like a green area. And yeah, we do it right there. That's the place where we've been doing it for, all these years. Like I said, ours is a little of a unique situation because, we started so long ago and it's so popular that, if they tried to stop Krishna lunch at the University of Florida, the students would probably have a revolution. But yeah, but see, if this program wasn't going on for so long and we tried to start it now, I don't think we would be able to do it now. It would be different because now they have rules about these things, they have restrictions about these things. But because we kind of like got in before they made the rules, then we're in. We got the foot in the door. But there may be other ways that you can do it, like Brajananda Prabhu, he was doing it at up there in Tallahassee.
Yeah.
And he ended up having, he had to rent a room for doing, he couldn't do it outside, he had to do it inside. So he was paying rent for a room to do it, but they were able to do it. And it was gradually increasing. And it was almost getting to the point where, you know, it was paying for all the expenses and the rent and everything. So, but then the pandemic hit, so it all kind of like just, you know, program was finished for a while. But it's not impossible. And it may be also something that, you know, if you have a club, if you have like a Krishna club, you can get the club members who are students to try to petition for doing something like that, that it could start off small, something like a, you know, bake sale or something like that with prasadam, or, you know, like something, and just some way to, you know, get it started. And then from there, you can gradually grow. You have to explore different options, whether renting a room or using through the club or whatever, or doing like a food truck. I know at UF they sometimes allow food trucks to go there and park inside and distribute food. So yeah, to explore different options and see what the management of the university will accept.
A second question, if permitted, then is about the residents in Krishna House. Are those all coming to from the University of Florida? Are they full-time students there, or they also a mixed population there? What kind of residents are there?
It's mixed, yeah. So what we do is, you know, we have different options for devotees living in the ashram. So one is that they're just a full-time devotee, and they do 20 hours of service per week, and they don't pay anything. They just do service, and they get their, you know, room and prasadam and everything for free. So then it's good. They're not earning money, but they don't have any expenses either. They're just, you know, taking a time to try to, you know, immerse themselves in spiritual life. Then there's others who are full-time students. So they can't, because they're studying all the time, they can't do the 20 hours of service. So they pay rent. They pay, you know, I mean, for here, they pay $500 a month rent for their room, or sometimes it's a shared room. But whatever the, you know, your economy is there, you could charge a reasonable rent. And then we have a couple of students even who have full-time jobs, and so they pay rent. But the thing that everybody has in common is that they all have to go to the morning program. So we have because it's a preaching center, we adjusted our morning program. So the Mangalarti starts at 6 o'clock, and then Guru Puja at 7:30, and then class at 7:40, and class finishes at 8:30, and then there's prasadam, and 9 o'clock. Yes, the morning program. We have Tulsi Puja first before Mangala. So Tulsi Puja is at 5 o'clock, from 5 to 5:15, and then there's a japa period. So Tulsi Puja is optional, because some of the students, they have, you know, they're up late at night studying. Sometimes they even have late night classes, and people who work full time, it's hard to, you know, work an 8-hour day and then, you know, be up for that early. But still we get, actually most of the students, most of the ashram residents do come to Tulsi Puja. And then from 5:15 to 6, there's just a japa period. That's like the first japa period. And then from 6 to 6:30 is Mangalarti. So everybody who lives here has to be at Mangalarti. That's like strict rule, unless they're cooking breakfast or something like that. Then from 6:30 to 7:30, we have another japa period, and then the group puja and class. So yeah, and we try to always keep some rooms here for new people to come. So that's why, we after they've been here for a few years and they're kind of like trained, they take an initiation, they're fixed up devotees. Then what we're doing now is, because Kalakant Prabhu is really trying to start ashrams in other places. So now he's working on Houston. Houston Temple is really willing to support having men's and women's ashrams. And so we sent a few devotees over there to try to get that going. They have this big house. It's an urban farm with this old big farmhouse. And so they're, I think they're separating it up. There's Kalakant Prabhu, he's a firm believer that in order to have a successful brahmachari ashram, you also have to have the brahmacharini ashram. It has to be balanced. And so that then when new people come in, they see, oh, men and women can also live in the ashram. But it's separate, like we have men's ashram is one building and the women's ashram is other place. It's all separate, of course. Yeah. But as far as activities, then the mood that we like to have here is like a family mood. So although we have young men and young women who are doing services side by side and morning programs side by side, but the relationship is more like brothers and sisters. They're friendly with each other. They're respectful. They do things together. They're out serving prasadam together, harinam together, but we don't have so many we don't have issues, because the mood is like family. It's like brothers and sisters, and we have strict standards for interactions between the men and women, where it's relaxed in some ways. But for example, like one thing that we have is rule of 3, that a man and woman cannot be alone in a room with a closed door or in a car. There always has to be a third person, even for myself. Even when I'm the age, I could be someone's mother, but if we're going to go in a car, there has to be another person there. Or if we're in a room, we can't close the door. We can be outside and talk, but in a room, there needs to be a third person. So those are important things, because when you have young men and young women together, especially Westerners, you get them falling in love with each other and things, if you don't have some restrictions. And also the ashram leaders are very careful to keep a watch on things to make sure that relationships aren't developing. And, they're always being reminded that, men and women shouldn't reveal their minds, talk about their deep feelings and things with each other, but they should be more reserved and, speak about general things like service and events that are coming up, and they can speak philosophical questions, but not share their deep personal thoughts and feelings about things.
Mataji, so it's already 7:02. If you allow, we can maybe take 1 or 2, maybe at least 1 more questions, if it's okay with you.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay. Hare Krishna. So if anybody has anything, please go ahead. We got the permission to at least ask 1 more question. Hare Krishna, I heard somebody saying something.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Nice to see you.
Hare Krishna. Nice to see you, Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation and being here. The reason really I personally like your presentation is I attended when we were in our college, and when you gave your first Bhagavatam lecture at New Vrindavan, I was really amazed at the depth of realization that you brought with simple stories. And I really very, I would say, admired the deep realization that you had. And also during our discussion that whenever there's any interaction happens and the question that you ask and the things that you share with all our different instructors that we came across during this 1.5 year, I've been closely, I wouldn't say watching, but always hearing whenever you give some feedback, because it has depth of a realization and experience. The way that you present it, always you see a different angle. So I just wanted, I felt that our congregation would really benefit by you coming here and giving your association. I deeply appreciate your dedication and service that you're doing over there, and I'm moved by all the thing that you're just doing. I just want to thank you so much on behalf of our St. Louis congregation and the temple. Thank you for giving your valuable time, and we pray to Krishna Balaram and Nitai Gaur Nataraj to give all the strength to you so you can serve Srila Prabhupada and all the devotees with good health. Thank you, Mataji. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Jai, thank you so much for your kind blessing and encouragement.
Thank you. Thank you, Ramacharya Prabhu, for organizing this program.
Thank you, Prabhu. I feel the same way, and you kind of re-emphasized it. I do think that we can have maybe 1 or 2 additional sessions where we can little hear more about Western preaching and some of our real life experience, all the services that she's doing there. So yeah, I thank you for sharing that. I was also thinking along the same line.
I do have one question. It's not question, but something if you can want to discuss with Kalakanta Prabhu. We are in the middle of a couple of nice universities, but unfortunately we don't have any solid brahmacharis here, and quite a bit of challenge because most of us are congregation living outside the temple. And if any our temple, we have a big building and a lot of rooms are there. So if anything can be worked out, like how you just mentioned that few brahmachari went to Houston to help out Houston community. So if something can be considered even to get started and help, we'll be very happy to explore that option and see what we can do. We have a high possibility of doing book distribution in airport, but we have hardly anyone going there except 1 or 2 devotees, were dedicated devotees, but then we don't have anyone else doing that sort of book distribution, things like that. So there are a lot of opportunities here, but the resources are very tight and less, I would say. So, something that you may want to discuss, and if anything that we can take this offline, please, you can let me know. We can have a separate call and we can talk.
Has Kalakanta gone to the temple there?
No, yes. As far as I know, he has not. But I did have a discussion with them last year, briefly. But then I think it'd be nice to revisit the discussion again, since you're there and we know each other. It'll be nice to you connect and see if we can do something over here.
Yeah, that would be really nice. Yeah, and he's good. You should try to. There's a couple of times where he travels, to different places where they. So you should invite him to travel to your temple. If he sees it and he sees the potential there, and the temple management is very enthusiastic about having ashrams there, and having resident devotees and taking care of them, and because it's not just having a space. You need ashram leaders. You need programs. For them, education and all that. So
yeah, that's what he told. In the very first conversation, he was just mentioning about to have a what is it called? He named something as a leader or some name is it.
Bhakti Academy director.
Yeah, exactly. he said that was just took me off. Oh my God.
Bhakti Academy director basically means the ashram leader. So you need a men's ashram leader and a women's ashram leader. And then, yeah, they can also organize the training and the courses. And
I won't take much of your everyone's time here. This is something we can talk offline.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much again.
All right.
Thank
Sure.
you.
Thank you once again for coming, Mataji, and giving your precious time. We are going to chant Vaishnava Pranams and then we adjourn tonight. If there will be anything further that we need your help on, definitely Lal Baba will reach out.
Okay.
Once I really appreciate coming and giving your time. So we'll do Vaishnava Pranams. Vanchkalpata Rubhyasya Kripa Sindhuvya Evasya Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Assemble Bhakti Vrindi Ki Jai. ISKCON Patracharya His Divine Shashi Bhaktivedanta Swami Sri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Thank you, Hare Krishna, everybody. Thank you so much. See you next Sunday. Hari Bol. Dandavats.
Hare Krishna.
Hari Hari Mataji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.